8 years and $2 billion wasn't enough for Toyota to win a single F1 race. Toyota practically dominates every motorsport. They've conquered the desert in Dakar, became rally champions and won Le Mans 4 times in a row. The only thing they're missing is Formula One. But how could a juggernaut like Toyota, the king of motorsports, not win a single F1 race after spending way more than the other teams, especially considering they had one of the fastest cars on the grid in their last season? Well, the story starts in 1999, when Toyota announced that they will be entering F1 in 2001. They'd been developing a car with one of those V12 engines from back in the day. But they didn't build that car in their home factory back in Japan. They built a new base in Germany, and that was their first mistake. Because Toyota had a very peculiar way of doing things, the Toyota way, every decision the F1 team made had to be approved by the big bosses in Japan. So if the engineers had a decision to make about the car, this decision had to travel across the world to Japan, get approved and go back to Germany. This could easily be a one-day delay in decision making, which might not seem like a lot, but this is F1 we're talking about. You have 10 teams working their ass off every season to exploit the regulations to their favor. Every second counts. Still, despite the faulty logistics, the Toyota F1 team managed to build their first F1 car. However, that car would never race in F1, because in the year 2000, the FIA decided to ban V12 engines and switch to V10s, which completely destroyed Toyota's plans. So now they had to start developing a new engine from scratch, which meant they wouldn't be able to enter in the 2001 season as they hoped, losing $11 million in the deposit. However, it would take more than that to defeat the king of motorsports, and after 2 long years they had their new car, the TF102. They hired race winner Mika Salo and Alan McNish, who had been driving at Le Mans for Toyota. In their first season, they had the biggest budget on the grid, bigger than Ferraris, and they had a solid debut because in the first race of the season, the 2002 Australian Grand Prix, they managed to get 1 car in the points, which happened again just 2 races later in Brazil. But that was it. They finished that season with only 2 points. It wasn't the start they expected, so they decided to make their next mistake: blame the drivers. One of the big bosses in Japan told the drivers they weren't braking as late as the other drivers that had better race results. What he didn't seem to realize is that their car had way worse aerodynamics, making braking late impossible. They fired their drivers and got new ones for the next 2003 season: Monaco winner Oliver Panis and Cristiano Da Matta, and this time they managed to score more points. They even managed to lead the race for a few laps in the British Grand Prix thanks to this random guy in the track, forcing many drivers to pit early. But they still weren't there yet. Poor strategies and poor car performance wouldn't let them get good results. So they finished this season 8th in the championship, and they became very desperate at this point, because in the next season they started doing some shady stuff. They tried to sneak some illegal parts to the Canadian GP, which got them disqualified, and at the end of the season they were caught stealing data files from Ferrari, which didn't come as a surprise since the car Toyota had that year was very similar to the one Ferrari had the previous year. This was by far their lowest point in F1, so they got nervous and decided to switch drivers again. But with new drivers also came their best decision yet, and the one that would completely change the story, making Toyota a very competitive team for the next season. They hired Mike Gascoigne, a young British race engineer that came from making Renault race winners. This man knew his shit, and he was about to prove it in the 2005 season, Toyota's most successful season in F1. And it wasn't only thanks to Mike, because the new drivers Toyota hired weren't no newbies either. They now had race winner Jarno Trulli and Ralf Schumacher, the young brother of the legend himself, who had a very successful run with Williams. They had all the tickets to an F1 victory this season. And things just kept getting better for Toyota, because they started supplying their engines to another team on the grid, meaning that their engines would have more mileage and therefore they would gain a lot more experience. Their hopes went through the roof, and so did their results. Jarno qualified second in the opening Australian Grand Prix, and he managed to finish second in the next 2 races in Malaysia and Bahrain, with yet another podium in Spain. At this point, their first win was just a matter of time, but this was 2005, and the 2005 season had a monster on the grid. You know who. The reason why Jarno only managed to qualify or finish a race in 2nd place. But things were about to change in Indianapolis, and by things I mean the whole sport. The 2005 Indianapolis Grand Prix saw Jarno Trulli qualify first with his Toyota, but it also saw Ralf Schumacher hit the wall after one of his Michelin tyres decided to blow up. For safety reasons, all cars with Michelin tyres were forced to retire before the race even started, including the Toyotas. What could have been Toyota's first F1 race win became one of the weirdest race starts in F1 history, with only 6 cars on the track. And even though after they got 2 more podiums and another pole position in their home Grand Prix thanks to Ralph, the race win never happened that year. They finished the championship 4th with 88 points. By far their best result, but not good enough for the big bosses. So they decided to start making bad decisions again. They fucking fired Mike, the man responsible for their best F1 season ever. And better yet, Toyota decided to switch their tyre supplier from Michelin to Bridgestone just because of commercial reasons, which completely destroyed the progress of the past, since the car was built around the Michelin tyres. The Toyota way doesn't work in Formula 1, and 2006 was the proof of it. The next 2 seasons were hard to watch for Toyota fans. In 2007, Williams started running on Toyota engines, and they finished 4th over Toyota in 6th place, which pointed to the bad car aerodynamics and race strategies of Toyota. Then in 2008, they replaced Schumacher for Timo Glock, who did give them a 2nd place in Hungary, but Toyota was far from competitive. However, the next season looked different. The 2009 season was going to be Toyota's last attempt at the F1 title. They'd spent too much money and the company was already suffering from the economical crisis at the time. But 2009 presented a fresh start, a change in the regulations. Every few years, Formula 1 has regulation changes that blesses the teams that can adapt better to them. Those teams that can find the best way to enter new regulations have the best potential to dominate the game. And in 2009, Toyota was one of those teams. What they found was called the double diffuser, a clever aerodynamic piece that simply put gives more downforce to the rear of the car, which literally translates to a faster car. And when the 2009 season started in Australia, the double diffuser proved to make the car fast, very fast. Right from the start, the Toyotas were flying. This was one of those technologies that makes champions in Formula 1, and it did. But it wasn't Toyota. It was Brawn GP, the team that was built from the ashes of Honda that also had that double diffuser. This was a double hit for Toyota because not only did they lose their last chance to get that F1 win, but they also lost that chance to one of their biggest rivals outside of Formula 1. Since then, Toyota has been very busy, not only conquering other motorsports, but also reviving a few of their classic sports cars. Will they give F1 another try and finally conquer everything that there is to conquer for a car manufacturer? They keep saying that they're not coming back, but lately there's been a huge hunger for success at Toyota that says otherwise.